Okay, so this is the assembly video for the boss drawer. It's one of the more complicated assemblies, but if you lay everything out like this, it's not too bad. Like everything, we're recommending gluing these parts when you're putting them together. So you put the piece in, just put some glue down in the valley there before you insert it in, and it hopefully won't come apart after you put it together. So very first pieces that we're going to put in, we're going to take the base piece here, and we're going to take this piece and this piece. Now this is not a symmetrical piece. There's a small tab on this side, and this one extends all the way to the floor here. So I want to make sure the side that extends all the way down is towards the little hexagon cutout here. And you want to make sure the base plate is in this orientation with the hexagon kind of up in the upper left. So we're going to start by inserting this into this first channel here. We're going to do the two inner channels with these two pieces. So just like that. Second one here. Again, just kind of line it up. Once you get it lined up, you don't really have to push too hard on the thing as long as you got it lined up, and it'll kind of snap in. But as long as you got it lined up, if you do have to push a little bit, it shouldn't be too bad. So just like that. And then the next pieces we're going to do is a small sub-assembly. So we're going to take this guy here, and this one's really critical to get facing the right orientation. So there's an unsymmetrical notch right here in the base plate there. We need to line that up with this notch here, and this one corresponds with this one here. So you need to make sure that this is facing this at the end of the day. We're going to take these two pieces here, and we're going to put them in on the back side on the inner two notches. So this one's going to slide in right there, and this one's going to slide in right here. So we're still oriented like this, and those two divider walls are on the back side there. And then we're going to take this piece, and this notch here is going to go into this notch, and we're going to take the mating piece, and it's going to go over here. Now this one is symmetrical, so it's not that big a deal which way it's facing. Go and line it up with that notch, kind of push it in there, and kind of hold everything together while you're doing that. And we're going to do the same thing on the other one here. Just get it lined up, and then just get it started. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drop this whole sub-assembly, and there's two notches in that back wall there, the inner back wall, that correspond with those two posts that extended all the way down to the floor. So we're going to slide those over those notches, and you really want to get everything lined up before you start pushing everything down. But things are going to want to kind of fall apart on you a little bit, so you got to be careful when you're putting it in. But get those two posts lined up, and sometimes you got to maneuver those inner walls just a little bit to get everything lined up. Once you get it started, you kind of want to work your way down the part. So get started at this back side of it, and get popped in just like that. And then you can kind of work your way down and line up all these individual tabs. And once you get it lined up, you can kind of push it out a little bit and get it to go. Spin it around so I can see the other side. So same deal, just kind of work to get it lined up. And once it lines up, it should just start popping in. And kind of squeeze everything together here. Now you're going to want these nice and tight because this is a drawer. So the tolerances at the end of this are going to matter for the clearances in the drawer box on the mating part, so you don't have something that's too tight. So really get it tight. You can also, since all this is at the same plane here, you can flip it down on this wall, and you can push down a little bit. As long as you're not rocking it too much, you shouldn't damage anything. Okay, get everything nice and tight. Okay. So this point should look just like this. So the next pieces we're going to put are the front wall and the back wall. So we'll start with the front wall here. I'll take this. This one's symmetrical, so just pick whichever side you want facing out. Sometimes there's a nicer side of the plywood. So then I want to line it up on this first notch here. And just kind of work your way down. So maneuver these inner walls a little bit. You may have to wiggle them around to get them to line up properly. And once they line up, should just kind of pop right in. There we go. Just like that. Make sure everything's nice and tight. And then we'll flip it around and do the back wall here. So again, this is the one that is not symmetrical, so you need to line up the notches with the slots. So again, start on the notches there and kind of work your way down the floor. Just like that. Okay, so for this next step, it is critical which side you do first to make it a little easier for you. So we want to start on the side that's opposite of the little window here on the bottom. So we're going to start on the shorter side here, so flip it that way. You're going to take one of these little coin holder pieces, so this is the part that forms the base from the boss coins fit in there. And you're going to insert this in. There's a deeper notch here and a deeper notch here. So these are going to go in those lower notches. You can put a little bit of glue on there and just not too much or it'll squeegee everywhere. You just want to get that started in that secondary notch. Get it all nice and snug. Just like that. And then we're going to put this right wall on. So this is the front side of the part. So this will be the front. Logo goes on the outside. And these little half circle cutout here goes in the back. So we're going to start it over this notch right here. And there's some flex in these parts, so it really does help to start it on one side and kind of work your way across. Get everything lined up as you go along. And you got to make sure that lines up right there, pops in, just like that. So if everything's nice and snug, it should pipe together pretty easy. Sometimes you got to maneuver some parts around though. Just like that. Okay, so now we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the other side. So we can start with this piece. And same thing as the other one. So we're going to get it in that little notch, just like that. And then one of the trickier parts for this whole thing here. So we're going to take these 3 bars, and there's a series of 3 slots that goes all the way through these 3 pieces here. So these 2 here are clearances, and this 3rd wall is where it terminates into the wall itself. So there's a small post on each one of these bars. So that's going to insert through here. So just get it lined up. Should just slide right on through, just like that. And once you get it kind of lined up, you may have to wiggle it around a little bit. Should just pop in here. Let's see. It's been a little bit difficult. There we go. Just like that. And just do that with all 3 of these. And some of them are going to be tighter than others. Get it lined up. Just like that. So now we got this last wall that has to go on. And the tricky part of this is making sure that these 3 bars are still lined up when you're inserting that last wall. So that's what this small window on the bottom is for. So you can maneuver them back and forth a little bit from the top with your fingers. Or if you got a pen or a Q-tip or something, you can stick that in here and kind of wiggle it back and forth from the underside if you really got to line stuff up. Sometimes it's not necessary and just goes right together, but sometimes you got to wiggle parts. So we're going to start on that side. And this one I lucked out and you didn't really have to maneuver much, but again, you could if you needed to kind of stick stuff in the back there. Just kind of work your way across. Make sure everything's nice and snug so there's no hang-ups in the drawer. You really want to make sure there's as small gaps or no gap as possible in all these joints going across. The width is pretty critical on this thing to make sure it clears the box that it inserts into. But that's the boss drawer.